Hi everybody. So people ask me about the Sennheiser HD550 regarding PlayStation 5's audio focus. So I did test it out, and first of all, two things. First of all, when I connected the headphones to the DualSense controller, I was quite surprised how loud it sounded. Although I shouldn't be that surprised, because the Sennheiser HD550 has an impedance of 150 ohms, so they're fairly sensitive, and that's why they can still sound loud even from lower power outputs like the PlayStation 5 DualSense controller. So first of all, this is a positive thing because it can still enjoy really high quality sound, but just even connecting it to the controller and also having good volume so you can really enjoy and immerse yourself in the game. Well, the reason, by the way, I'm saying that is because, for example, if I connect my headphones to the preamp in my regular setup to the PC, or I connect the headphones to the monitor, this option is actually grayed out. It's not available. So of course, there are ways to kind of set it up so it will work. So from what I've read, the PS5 only support USB 1 devices over USB, like for example, DACs like the Sheet Hell and JDS Atom DAC Plus, again with the appropriate firmware, or even the SteelSeries game DAC are recognized as headset, so the PS5 enables headphone feature through them. And some people use small, like USB 1 compliant USB dongle DAC, like a cheap USB sound card plugged into the PS5. And that dongle outputs optical or line out into your main DAC amp. So the PS5 sees the dongle as headphones, so audio focus works. But your real DAC amp does the heavy lifting. Aside from that, there are also ways to use HDMI audio extractors that can trick the PS5 into thinking headphones are connected. Anyway, just a side note, so let's jump into the options there. So this is something that is disabled by default. You need to enable it by just going to settings, sound, volume, and then you're going to see audio focus. So there are different options, and there's also a preview which you can listen to that plays voices with a combination of footsteps and other sound, so you can really hear the difference. Now, I want to say that first of all, the sound separation of the HD550 is incredible, and it definitely shows. It shows all the time, but also here. And somebody might ask themselves, well, why should I use this and not maybe an equalizer? I mean, what's so special about the audio focus compared to just changing it with an equalizer, especially if you're connected to a PC or you have other option to change, play with the knobs on your DAC amp. Why audio focus? Why choose that? Well, in general simplicity, it's a system feature level feature that offers simple presets. It's designed for accessibility and quick tuning. Of course, you don't need any audio knowledge, or you don't need to buy anything or install anything. It's just built into the console. And the thing is that with console, they need to be kind of a self-contained with different features that are just great straight out of the box and can work for anybody. So even without knowledge, you don't need to be an expert in anything. Now, one thing that I actually researched, and this is actually important because I couldn't find anything about it, or what I could find mentioned that it's not the case, but I'm still going to mention it. If you know, by the way, let me know in the comment section below. If there was something, for example, with the APIs for developers to tag certain objects, sound objects, and mention them something that the API for the PlayStation recognize them for the audio focus, this can be great when sound are actually in context. So let me explain what I mean. So let's say that we're playing Battlefield 5, right? And there are footsteps. If I'm a developer, of course I'm using a certain sound for footsteps, I can define the object as footsteps, as an object footsteps that is recognized by the API. They can talk to the PlayStation 5 audio focus, and then what the audio focus can do is really target those specific sound effects in the game and amplify them, rather than just amplifying the sound, or amplify the frequencies. It seems like based on the settings that we read here that it's not the case. I thought maybe behind the scenes something like that happens, but I couldn't find any information that can verify that this is the case. And this will be something special, because then you can have maybe a setting just for footsteps, and you can just increase the footstep, maybe even the volume of the footsteps separately, just for that specific object. So just imagine how amazing it would be, and you can have great degree of control of certain objects in the game. So you can choose like object footsteps, for example, or object that is just voices, because again, there's just a certain file that's for the voices in the game, and you can just amplify that separately from everything else. You don't need to play around with, whether it's low or high or mid or something in between. It's never going to be like perfectly accurate because, sounds just mix together. This is why, by the way, sound separation is also very important here, because I don't think you have this thing that works in context. But just a thought, if there was something like that, this is going to be like amazing, right? But if you know more, by the way, in the comment section. And although you have the option to make adjustment to the level, it's still very limited, right? And equalizer will give you just better control, a very precise control. And this is, again, if you have the setup, you might prefer just setting it up there rather than changing settings here. You can easily also change it on the fly rather than going out of the game, change it again. You can just set it up, as you listen to the sound in game. So it's more like a plug and play feature, just works out of the box, very easy to manage. But you can still use both, of course, because you can just use this one and just fine-tune it with your equalizer, whether it's hardware or software based. But again, if you don't have it connected, and as I mentioned, it's not really straightforward to have it available, this feature, you need the headphones to be recognized as connected. It's very easy for those who don't have the knowledge to just turn it on and play with it and get it done. By the way, when I say straightforward, I mean, not that it's just complicated like that. Of course, depends on the setup, but you can buy, for example, deck amp like these ones. By the way, make sure to check it out before you actually purchasing that. Those are indeed supported. From what I've read, they do that basically because the PlayStation 5 can be recognize it, and then you just connect the headphones to this kind of a middle hardware, and you can have better control over the results. By that I mean that many of the DAC and amps have their own hardware EQ toggles like bass boost, gain, and filters that allows you to kind of play with the sound to your liking. But you cannot really run here if you connect it to the PlayStation 5 to run kind of third-party EQ software like PSAPO and others. I mean, if you want something complicated like that, you can find a practical solution like using UAC1 compliant USB DAC with dual USB routing. So you pick a DAC and amp that the PS5 natively recognizes and connect it directly to the PS5 via USB, so PS5 can see it as headphones. And then run the line out or optical pass-through from the DAC into your PC's line-in. And on PC, you can capture and apply EQ via equalizer APO, for example, voice meter and others, while still having PS5 treated as a headset. Another option that might work is use a USB audio splitter switch. So you can connect the DAC and amp to a USB switch that can feed both the PS5 and the PC, and the PS5 gets the UAC1 handshake, so audio focus works and is enabled, and the PC also sees the DAC as an audio device, so letting you control the EQ in real time. Now, another option that might work is you plug the DAC and amp into the DualSense 3.5mm jack line-in, and then PS5 will see this is headphones, so audio focus plus Tempest stay active. Then run the DAC amps line out into your PC for EQ control. So the downside of this is you are limited by the controller's analog output quality, but it's the most kind of let's say foolproof way to keep headphone active. Anyway, but probably other ways, I'm not sure every one of them will work. I'm just kind of giving away some suggestions that might kind of help you solve this issue if you want to apply these type of settings. Basically something that creates a bridge that can just connect it to the PC and then to the DAC amp and to change settings, and then the DAC and amp, of course, is connected to the PlayStation 5, and those settings will apply, and you can actually control them using your PC. So if you care about footsteps, you want to boost the highs, all right? And this is significant. And of course, I listened to it with the Sennheiser HD550. It is significant. If you also put it on high pitch and adjust the level to strong, the footsteps are so clear. And the same goes, by the way, the other way around. If you put it in a situation where you want, other background sound to be quiet, you can hear the footsteps just, like fade away, just almost completely disappear. So it's really fine-tuned to really give you a difference. So you can really hear the difference when you actually change these settings. So it really feels like they're kind of fine-tuned to those specific things, like footsteps, for example, with just such a big difference, and you can make the sound even disappear compared to hear it very, very clearly. So the bottom line, the combination of very high quality sound, great sound separation, is very noticeable when you're using the audio focus settings on the PlayStation 5. However, we said that if you have the other option connection where it's still being detected, but you have better control over the bass, It will be better because for some games where you really want to hear the bass kind of more prominent, there's nothing like increasing it specifically with an external equalizer, or again, whether it's hardware or software, to really get those sub bass sounds, or I can say like vibrations, as prominent as you can, because again, by default, this is open back headphones, so they are not as loud or not as prominent, and they need a bit of boost. Now that's where the problem is, because it's kind of more very predefined, and you don't have really lots of degree over fine-tuning the sound, you might not get what you want. So maybe, for example, in Battlefield, like you want to see here Battlefield 6, this is from the beta, you want to hear the footsteps very clearly, but you also want to hear explosions. So you don't want to ruin something like in between. You want to have like really this kind of maybe V curve where the the lows sound very clearly with the sub bass, but you also want to hear the highs with the footstep. So you can really fine tune it more precisely by just having an equalizer control, whether it's on your DAC app or whether it's on an external software. So this is why I mentioned having the other setup where you have a DAC app, or just hearing the sound through your PC, and you have option using software, for example, to fine tune it. It can lead you to just getting better results. Depends on the game you're actually playing and what you want to get in that game in terms of sounds. So overall, bottom line, it performs very well for the Sennheiser HG550 out of the box. Great for, again, accessibility for everybody just want to get results, and if it works for you for certain games, great. If it doesn't work, of course, there are other ways around it to give you better control. Might be a bit more tricky to do, but it is possible. Now, one of the huge advantage that you have if you, for example, even have a video capture card and transfer it into the PC, and you have other setup that allows you to control the sound more precisely, fine-tune it using software or hardware, is that you can create in certain software, you can create profiles. So you can create a certain profile for a certain game or a certain even genre and quickly switch between them. So if there was something like that on the PlayStation 5 to give you more control and kind of a profile for certain games or for a specific game, I think this would be much better. Even just on the PlayStation 5, play with an equalizer, you see it. Maybe something overlay that you can just overlay, change it, when you're actually playing, and just set it as a profile, and just, the game, it will automatically load for a specific game. We can just choose between profiles on the fly and just find something that is best fits your needs. Because if something like that is already available, why not make it more, kind of professional in quotation, give more control to those who want better control without actually needing an external software. So it is limited, and it would be great, of course, if that option that I just mentioned exists, but as of the time making this video, it doesn't. So I'm personally more into, the middleman that have control over more precisely over the results, rather than just relying on autofocus here, although it does a very good job as well. Or maybe in certain situation I can use both, but definitely fine tuning is the better way to get what you want, and also being able to just create profiles, just switch and I get perfect equalizer for what I consider, best for what I need playing games, like in Battlefield 6, for example, and others. Thanks for watching.